I know where there's some, right here in the hall, clerk.
No, Molly, not in there. I have enough.
Hello and welcome back, GE 514. This episode should be fairly short, he says. Should be fairly short because what I want to do now is confirm that this radio should have had a 50C5 power output tube. And what the cabinet is indicating is there's a 50B5, and that in fact is the tube that we came out of there. So what I want to do now is determine whether I can tell whether this circuit in the chassis has been rewired for a 50B5, and it should be fairly straightforward simply by comparing pin 1 of the two tubes. Pin 1 of the 50C5 is the cathode and the beam plates. Cathode right here. Beam plates show up better on the schematic that came with the radio. So the cathode is down here, and the beam plates are these two vertical lines that go up either side. And so that's the pin 1 runs to those in the 50C5. On the 50B5, pin 1 is grid number 1, which is grid number 1 is pin 2 on the 50C5. So what we should be able to do is to figure out whether pin 1 of this socket goes to a, what do we got here? A 470K resistor right there. So if the socket is doing is connecting pin 1, the schematic says it should be pin 2, but if it's connecting pin 1 to a 470 ohm K ohm resistor, we probably can be very sure that this has been rewired for a 50B5. Okay, we're looking at top down at the socket, and here's pin 1. You go counterclockwise from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's pin 1, and that connects to this cone-shaped thing with a big solder blob on the end, right there. And that's this red wire right here, which is kind of monstrous. Looks like power cord line, like a number 12 wire. It's huge. Anyway, comes out of the pin 1 socket, goes over here to a, oh, who would have guessed it? 470K resistor right there, which then goes on to pin 1 of the 12AV6. And let's see if that's correct. So through the 470K resistor, and then on to pin 2. Here's pin 1. Am I looking at this right? So pin 1 of the 50B5 is for grid number 1, and grid number 1 is pin number, is this line right here, goes to the 470K, then it's supposed to go to our B plus rail right here, and then also through this cap over to pin 7, so unrelated to that. What it seems to be doing is going from pin 1 through the 470 over to here, which also has a, what is that, green, gray, green? Boy, it's hard to tell. Hard to tell for me, probably hard to tell for you too. Or blue, gray, green. It's this pin right here of this socket. And this pin right here is this guy. And that's pin 1 of the 12AV6. You can tell it's pin 1 because there's a marker. There's a small hole right there. Oh, no. I'm going backwards. Didn't do it right. This is pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's going to pin 8 of the 12AV6. And the schematic says pin 6. Pin 8 is just a connecting point. So the 12AV6 doesn't use its pin 8. It uses 1, 3, 4, 2, 5, 6. So it's just a tie point. So this is probably going down here to a tie point that happens to be on the 12AV6. So I fooled myself there for a second. So what we've got is a 50, this has been rewired for a 50C5. So the question that I have for myself now is, okay, it's been rewired for 50C5. I have a 50C5 on hand. My inclination is to put it back the way the schematic says it's supposed to be. And I think I will do that ultimately. But what I'll do next, rather than tackling that, is I'm going to clean up the capacitors that are in here. Replace the electrolytics and all these waxy paper caps. And at that point, as soon as I replace the electrolytic, actually, then I'll see if the radio works. Well, no, I won't either. I'll replace... If I'm going to replace one, I might as well replace them all. Look at this cap right here. This guy is bulging its end wax plug out, sticking out of the capacitor. So I know that one's bad. So what I will do is what I just said. I'll replace the electrolytics and all the waxy paper caps, and then we'll come back and see if the radio actually works after that. So that's what's next.
Besides, I've just been working hard.
You been what?
I've been working hard.
Well, while you're having your eyes looked at, I'll go get my ears examined.
Huh?
I could have sworn you said you'd been working hard.
That ratted I have been, every night. Except last night. I sat up most of the night last night and read last night.
Well, now, what'd you do that for, foolish?
I had to. I had a book that I couldn't lay down once I'd started it.
Was it that good?
It was terrible. But I was eating taffy at the time and got stuck with it.
Well, now, I don't care. Your eyes need attention, and tomorrow morning we're going downtown and have you examined for glasses. Well, I've been trying to get you to go for 6 months.
Well, I'm finishing this telescope tonight, and from then on, I won't have to strain my eyes. Boy, it's going to be swell to have a nice big new telescope. Here I've been spending hours out there in that backyard every night watching the sky through them old opera glasses.
Who are you expecting, Santa Claus?
Don't be ridiculous, Mrs. McGee. I've been checking a certain section of the consternation, and I think, mind you, that I may have discovered a...
Discovered a what?
Well, never mind. I want to do a little blah, 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 blah. I want to do a little more checking up before I make any announcements. The guy said when he stuck his hand in the alphabet soup, I'm groping for words. I wonder who that is.
May maybe it's Venus to complain about peeping Toms. Come in.
The makers of Johnson's Wax.